little while ago, I made a video reacting to your hot takes, and a little while before that, I made another video reacting to your hot takes, and yet again before that. The point is, this is a series now, so you get how this works. You send your hot takes in on Instagram, and I react to them. 3, 2, 1, let's go. Okay, so we're starting off with one I disagree with. I like Manta and all, but Mako is just so good. Like, Mako is the best B&M hyper, and it's not even close. The only reason I put Nitro so close to it is for nostalgia reasons. But Mako has really the quintessential B&M hyper layout. The L layout is just so clean, and literally every single element is executed perfectly. Also, if you're judging Manta at night, you should really also judge Mako at night. Like, if you don't do that, I don't really get the comparison there. Manta is really fun, but personally, flyers have never really done it like that for me. Like, I like them, but they're never the highlight of the parks I've been to, not even with Tatsu, and definitely not over here with Mako. There's also a take saying Manta is B&M's like best work, and I feel like that's just kind of ridiculous. Like I said, it's not even the best in the park, and beyond the park, there are so many rides that are better. I'm gonna have to pass on both of these because I strongly disagree. This is a stupid take. Old Wildcat was maybe one of the worst coasters I've ever been on. It probably was. I have a whole video on it and why it sucked. And the thing is, when this ride was open, everyone called it garbage. This is like that don't miss it till it's gone syndrome, where you only appreciate something when you don't have it anymore. It's like that one Passenger song from a while ago. This thing was rough, slow, boring, and airtimeless. I get that it was the first GCI ever, so it was like a monumental roller coaster or whatever because it introduced us to this design language. But if you put it into the context of even just Hershey Park, then the ride was just not that good. I'm not even gonna sugarcoat it here. The only good part about it was the funny seal sound at the end. And I know this isn't what the person is saying, but Wildcat's Revenge is definitely a huge upgrade. I haven't even been on it, and I just know that. I just don't know how you could see this ride and what it's become and say, hey, I kinda missed that thing. This is another disagree from me. You guys are kinda coming in with some bad takes this time. Okay, I don't entirely agree with this one, but I can see where you're coming from. The finale in Magnum is really good. The hills are literally just triangles, so you're launched in every single one. And I don't get when people say that Magnum's so rough and it's so painful. Like yeah, what did you expect? It's a 50-year-old coaster. It's literally the first hyper ever built. If you want something glass smooth, then ride like Gatekeeper or Valraven or even Steel Vengeance. The roughness just kind of adds character to this, like a wooden coaster. I get the last hills are like extra painful because they're like low-key, poorly designed, but they're not like shaky or anything. It's just because they're triangles. It's literally just too much airtime for some people. They can't handle how much airtime you get. However, is it best in the world? I think for some people it could be. It takes a very specific type of person to love this ending, like love it over everything else, but I think those people exist out there. It's not like outrageous to think about. It's like a niche interest within coasters. But I feel like for the vast majority of people, myself included, Steve kind of just gives us a less powerful but more comfortable version of the Magnum finale, and I kind of just like that more. Also, I would take the Mosasaurus roll over both of them, so neither of these would really apply as the best finale in the world. So for me personally, I would disagree, but I understand where you're coming from. I see the vision. Yes. Duh. That one's easy. I agree with this one, but that's kind of a cold take. Like, obviously, a steel RMC would work well. It means RMCs would have the full freedom to do whatever they wanted. Also, they already do have steel RMCs. It's called Raptors. The Raptors are a perfect example of how RMC has full creative freedom. They can make something feel and look completely different than anything else on the market. And this would be the same for the iBox. Also, I'm pretty sure there are already some full steel iBoxes. I thought I heard that like Storm Chaser was full steel, or at least like mostly steel, and Zadra's also ground up with mostly steel, and those both look amazing. This one's a no-brainer. I full-heartedly agree that a full steel RMC would be successful, and I feel like there aren't going to be a lot of people who disagree with that. This is another one that I agree with, though it's not as commonly accepted as the last one. This is a real hot take. Not that steel RMC baloney, this is one that'll really get the people going. I think Raptor's a good ride. It has a cool first drop, a Cobra roll, snappy inversions, and a green color scheme. Ooh. The thing is though, when I got off Raptor, the first thing I thought to myself was, I feel like I've rode that before. Like, there are legitimately no surprises here. Every element here hits like any other invert you've been on, so if you've been on one invert, you can pretty much just piece together what the ride's gonna feel like. It just doesn't feel very inspired. The ride isn't that pretty, it's not the most intense ride in the park, and it has a bunch of nothing burger inversions, and it just also kind of just drags. There's some intense parts, but again, compared to other inverts, they're not like overly intense. It's just fine, and I'm okay with that. Not every coaster at Cedar Point needs to be a slam dunk, but I feel like people give this ride way more praise than it deserves. Gatekeeper, on the other hand, I think is way overrated. I feel like the main argument that people have is that it's forceless and kind of meanders and is just there to be a pretty ride at the front. First of all, it is a pretty ride at the front. It's actually a gorgeous ride at the front. I don't know why anyone would say that to criticize it. And second, it's not supposed to be intense. It doesn't have the most inversions or short snappy trains or steep drops or sharp turns. It's very self-aware that it's a graceful ride with sweeping turns and high off the ground inversions. It really just is a spectacle to see with the keyholes and that sky blue paint job. Seeing Gatekeeper fly over you as you walk in really just makes you want to run in and get in line, so I think it does its job well. I really like the slow wing over drop, I like the massive keyholes, I like how it's slower the entire ride. Everything else in this park tries to kill you, so this is literally a nice change of pace. I agree with this one almost 100%. And this one I do not agree with. The only coasters in the park that I think could maybe be overrated are Tatsu and maybe West Coast Racers. I do think Tatsu is like pretty overrated. I think it's a fine ride and all, but it's not like the superstar that people paint it out to be. It's smooth, it's graceful, it's honestly kind of like Gatekeeper if Gatekeeper had a random element in the middle that tries to decapitate you, but that's the thing. People aren't claiming Gatekeeper as a top 5 in the park. People are literally hating on the Gatekeeper. But for Tatsu, for some reason, people always say it's a must ride and one of the best B&Ms in the US or something crazy like that. It's not. It's fine. It's got some nice views and I like the inversions, but for the most part, I feel like it's nothing special. West Coast Racers is overrated by some people, but I feel like for the most part, people are pretty fair to it. I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of throwing that one in there to kind of try and agree with this opinion more, but I can't. I disagree. This park is not overrated. I want to end on this one because I hear it tossed around a lot. Now, I haven't been to Alton Towers, so take this opinion with a grain of salt, but I really don't feel like it has a major standout coaster. Like, it looks like it has good rides, don't get me wrong. Nemesis, Smiler, Rita, and all their other coasters look amazing, but there isn't one that stands out above the rest as a clear-cut, world-class #1. A lot of people say Nemesis fills that role, but like, a B&M invert can't really carry a park. I don't know how unique or well-themed or well-landscaped the ride is, an invert just can't carry the entire park. Think about the best parks in the world. Do any of these have an invert as their headliner? Any of them? No. It's always an RMC or B&M Hyper or a Giga or an Intamin or a Blitz. Really, you need airtime on a headliner, and I get that the criteria is subjective, but I feel like most people would agree you can't just get away with inversions. I think if they got a B&M Giga or one of those RMC Hyper hybrids, then this park would be seriously boosted, but I just don't know how they would theme a ride that big. This park has a lot of really creative and well put together themes for their coasters. They all kind of have this darker tone to it, which I really like. So I think they're getting there, but I wouldn't say it's a perfect park. It's a good park, but not flawless. That might be stretching it. They're at least one coaster away, if not more from that, because their lineup just isn't really that big either. Basically, I'm saying I disagree, but again, I haven't been to the park myself, so I'm really just talking out of my ass on this one. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys so much for watching all the way to the end, and remember to follow the Instagram if you want your hot takes featured, and I will see you all next time.